wanted to ask you about Darren Waller. We obviously keep asking ourselves, when are we finally going to see him? Where is he in terms of grasping the offense, in your language, your terminology that you're using today, and how are you confident that he's ready for the season?
Um, my experience with him, the mental side is of an extreme strength of his. So, knowing where he needs to be, terminology, that that for him is always just something that comes very natural to him because he's used to having to line up everywhere, especially in at the Raiders. So for him, really coming back is just making sure that we're getting him physically ready considering he had the year off. So when it comes to him, just my experience with him, I'm not really worried about the mental aspect for the game because he is and probably will ever be one of the smartest players I ever coached.
Frank, wondering what you saw from your backup offensive tackles in Chicago and Detroit, starting with Keon Smith in particular.
Yeah, saw guys that really, I mean, the trip on the road was really good for us. I mean, I think ultimately when you go on the road and you have a kind of a slate that is, you don't know what's going to happen. Like we're going into looks, we're going to situations that aren't scripted. So that's where you get to learn a lot about the guys, and especially when you are hit with things that maybe in the season you're going to build into part of your preparation. You're going to build into this is a look we don't want to do this into, but then yet we're going to put ourselves in that situation so we can learn. So we can learn stress points of protections. We can learn stress points of runs. And case in point, the first play of the Detroit joint practice. That's something in season that we would be pressure wise that we would make sure that we have an answer for because when you got six on the ball, you're going to put stress in your protection. So overall, the travel really provided us an opportunity to go against unscouted looks and be able to work through things. So when it came to the tackles, I think they did a great job. We saw growth in technique and fundamentals. Keon did in the run game, he shows us power at the point, ability to reach in the outside zone game. Like he did a really good job. And the one thing Keon provides is that versatility. His ability to play across the line is something that, as you guys know, we really find valuable, especially in our second wave of guys. And he had a really good this last week at Detroit as it got into the game. And then I think Larry's done a great job for us. We thought in the evaluation process of him and free agency, we saw a guy whose skill set really fit kind of our system, but yet he didn't play in that system. But you saw the glimmers of kind of what we were looking for, and he's really doing a good job and taking to the techniques because a lot of it is very different. We're going to be aggressive in how we want to set and how we want to run block, and I think he's really taken to it. And you're seeing him being able to challenge the edge of the pocket, and also in the run game being really quick and able to fit up and control the point of attack. So the backup tackles, it's never going to be perfect, especially with O-line. The growth and the process comes from learning. And the hardest thing, or sometimes, from as you guys look at it, you learn the most through failure or you learn through tough looks because you have to learn where the stress points of things are. Once you learn the stress points, you go, oh, and then as the season comes, we can control things with scheme and making sure that we're into the looks appropriate that we want to hit. So it was a good work for good 10 days for especially the line and especially those two guys.
What's one point of emphasis that you would give or have given to Jonah that you just really want him to keep in mind and remember when he's out there?
I think when you're dealing with young linemen, especially, I mean, it's a credit to him. If you think about it, he's a college right tackle. We move him to left side and play guard. So your whole world, essentially goes backwards from the beginning. And I think it's just reminding it's a process. And you can't be in a rush to get what you want. You have to know what you want and build each day to where you want to get. Fortunately, through Butch's experience and my experience, in 21, Rashawn was a rookie, going to be our starting left tackle, and he had to block, Joey Bosa every day. And just knowing that some days will be good, some days will be not what you want, but you have to stay true to the process of each day. What do you want to get done today? And then the next day, okay, this was good. I want to work on here. And if you stay to that, you build appropriately. You can use the 6 weeks to get yourself ready for the season.
Frank, just to check what I saw, what I think I saw, did Detroit play a lot of 8-man fronts against you guys? And was Cleveland last season the last team to play a lot of 8-man front single high safety against you?
Yeah, in training camp, like they're playing their defense and we're running our core. I wouldn't necessarily say they're game planning for us in practice. We're game planning for them. We're just trying to execute, things that we think are appropriate for the scheme they want to play. When obviously you get to the game, that's where in Detroit we were kind of a little bit more systematic in how we tried to move their defense, and hence why you saw some of the motioning we were doing, trying to move them around. So when the guys want to play 8-man fronts and challenge to stop the run, it's a good test for us. So I think you learn at the end of the season, certain areas, and then in training camp you want the hard looks, you want the things that are going to be challenging, and then from as you guys look at it, you could say, man, that didn't look necessarily like that was very good, or like what's going on there. Where we're going, that's what we need to see now. We need to see the hard things. We need to see things that challenge and stress us, because if we keep everything ideal and perfect all the time, then you don't really get your mind to grow and know, okay, in this concept, where are the challenges? Okay, who has the tough down? Okay, if they give us this front with this coverage and this rotation, that's a massive stress point. Who's got the tough down? Who needs to win? But if you keep it in too high shell or whatever it is, where it's boxes, everything's appropriate, perfect, there's no growth, there's no challenge. So I think ultimately, like when we get stressed with 8 on the ball safety pressures and all that, that's what you want this time of year, because I think that's how you're going to grow the most, is through going, now I know what you meant. Because I think most players, they get what you're doing, but it's through the actual application is where the most growth comes.
Frank, I asked you how Jalen Wright is doing. I know he's been put in some short yardage situations, but I would think 1.5 yards per carry in preseason is not ideal.
No, but I don't think ultimately when it's easy to measure a running back necessarily on his production, but I think ultimately when you're talking about running the football, we have to create consistent lanes for him. We have to understand where we're trying to execute and put the ball. I don't think it's necessarily when you look at one guy to say, oh, hey, he needs to. I think collectively there were times where we didn't execute against looks that we got to be better to run the ball against. So I wouldn't necessarily say, there's certain things that he's working on that, he's growing on, especially this next week will be huge. But I think collectively, guys need to understand when we're running into certain looks, we got to maximize it. And we've got to be more aggressive when we see the look especially. So I think overall as a blocking core, we got to help our running backs as much as we can.
Frank, piggybacking off what Omar just asked, based on what we've seen also from Ali, is it fair to suggest that he could push Jalen for that number 2 running back job?
Ultimately, right now, and I know you guys are like, well, it's a week, there's only a couple days left, and your assessments come. It really, for us, though, it's an ongoing process all the way, because sometimes the look that one guy gets is different than the other guy gets. The one guy gets maybe a better look or better block play. The other one has to make more out of something else. So I think Ollie's done a great job understanding what we're trying to do. He too has things that he's working on, but he's done a good job in his preseason opportunities. And I think this week will be important for all of the blocking guys in the running game and along with the backs to really, what do we learn over these 10 days when we were running into looks that maybe weren't ideal? What do we take that into this week as we're going against Jacksonville in preparation for Jacksonville? So I think, he's done a good job. But I ultimately think that as a core up front, that's where we got to make sure that we're all connected, especially for to help the running backs.
I want to ask about Keon Smith specifically, coming back from the injury last year. He played every snap in this preseason game. What have you seen from him from a versatility standpoint and how he's come along?
Yeah, I think last year in training camp, that was real hit to us because he was having a camp that we were feeling really good about his growth and where he was going. So now to see him coming back, and it's kind of, you're seeing the signs of picking up where he left off, of a guy who, when you come out of a smaller school, sometimes your development is going to be a little bit slower, especially at line. Is when you're a backup, it's hard because you're having to play here, you're having to play here, and it's not as easy as sometimes you think, oh, he's playing guard. Well, left, right, moving across does impact you a little bit because everything's backwards. So he's done a really good job. We've liked what we've seen, and we're excited to close camp, and especially a couple of these guys because it's kind of saw from the game certain things kind of click, and it'd be a good week for us to see put it all together as we finish up training camp.
You've talked about learning a lot. I'm just curious, in your career, is there anything you pick out that you had to learn, either philosophical, strategic, temperamental, to get to where you are today?
I'm still learning today. Like I know it's cliche and how it is, but I think the one thing I think you have to understand as a coach and as a player is that the minute you think you have it all figured out, you don't. So you have to keep your mind open to is there a different way I can share information? Is there a different way I can reach this person? I mean, for me, I'm the young coach in the NFL, 5 years as an assistant. I get my first opportunity to be a position coach. I think I got this stuff figured out, and then all of a sudden, you don't. The greatest impact I had on coaching was when I became a father and my kids started getting older. Then I realized, why am I, this NFL coach, trying to communicate to my son and he doesn't understand me? And it's, natural response. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, you learn and communicate different than I do. Okay, I have to learn to reach you. You're more visual. I can be a little more auditory. It's the constant growth of knowing that I have to meet the needs of others for them to fulfill where they need to go. And then I think that's the balance of you're always learning how to communicate more efficiently and more effectively. I think the minute you think you got it, you don't. I think that's the ultimate thing as far as learning. When you're younger, you think you got it all figured out. When you become a parent, you realize it's a lot of chaos. And now I got 6 children I got to manage, so I got my hands full of making sure I meet the needs of all of them and communicate everything effectively. But I think that's a challenge also when you're trying to reach a group of us. I got my 3 kids and my 3 stepkids. So I'm one of 6 kids, so I'm used to the chaos. Nicole, she's a little bit like, how do you do it? I'm like, just get used to the noise, and you kind of okay, that's a little louder there, it's a little quiet here. Okay, so we got to address this first. That'll get secondary. So, oh yeah, it's like.
What concerns you most, the quiet or the noise?
Depends on who's being quiet. You got to know your personnel. Yeah.
Regarding your backup quarterbacks, it seemed like they were both more comfortable against Detroit than against Chicago. What have you seen from each, and is Zach still the clear number 2?
I think compounding factors that we're talking about the run game. Why is one week better than the next? Okay, well, in Detroit, we were controlling the line of scrimmage, controlling the pocket. Their ability to get to the quarterback was less than it was in Chicago. Chicago, we're getting a little bit more pressure on the pocket. So that allows for quarterbacks to really learn, right? If I'm under duress, where do I need to go and how do I need to get there? And I think when you're in the Detroit game, we had a little, not to say it was perfect, but there was a little bit more control of the pocket, so allowed for distribution of the football. So as it always goes with, it's easy to say bad result, okay, oh, he's here, he's good result, he's here. But we really don't look at that. It's this time of year, why, when we're getting looks that we're not necessarily trying to go specifically attacking things like we would in a game, we're executing core concepts and what are we learning through the process. Okay, if you get this protection, where's the stress point? Oh, they brought this pressure, right? So we got to respond. The first third down, that protection, we got to respond quicker to make sure we have the middle of the pocket handled. Otherwise, your quarterback, you're about to throw the ball and you got a guy in your face, it's hard to distribute the football. So I think ultimately the growth that they've shown throughout training camp's been outstanding. You can measure results any way you look at it, but we're really pleased with where we're at right now, and this next week is going to be huge, I think, for the entire offense, not alone them.